Okay, so for this video, I'd like to just kind of take a look at a few interesting ideas that popped up in your writing for the formative assessment, and possibly some other things too. I can't remember what all notes I have on here, so I'll take a look at them as we get to them. Somebody mentioned about the Code of Ethics analysis essay. A really interesting quote, I thought, that was, "What I felt in my heart was different from what I believed politically." And I think that's one of the most important things about the idea of having a code of ethics, is looking at what you believe and really looking at whether or not you believe what you think you believe. And I think this is the assignment, the Code of Ethics analysis forces you to look at that a bit more deeply and maybe look for inconsistencies in your belief system, and then how you justify those things. We all rationalize stuff, and we all say we believe one thing and do another. And the idea with the Code of Ethics and the Code of Ethics analysis is to have you start to reflectively look at those things where you aren't consistent, because no doubt you aren't consistent. And actually, I shouldn't have said you. I should have said we aren't consistent, right? I'm not consistent either, but I've become more consistent, especially over the past 5 years teaching this class. I've become even more consistent in trying to match my thoughts with my actions and my words. And so keep that in mind moving forward. Something that this class has done for me, teaching it, and trying to be a model for my students, is it's shown me how to have a strong, supported opinion while seeing things through other perspectives. And there were a couple of students in the class who mentioned something along similar lines, right? If you have a strong opinion about something and you cannot support it, then that's something that needs to be examined. A lot of people mention things about not quite having enough time to read, and that has a lot to do with that idea of supporting your opinion. So start thinking about, what is important to you in your life. If there are things about this class that set up a conflict, right? Maybe you don't really want to be in the class. Maybe you don't even want to take this class. But you're maybe finding some things in the class that might be useful or that might be challenging. And so you're trying to figure out, gosh, I didn't think this class was going to take a whole lot of time, but now I'm sort of getting interested in it or involved in it, or now I realize it's a little more complex than I thought. How will you start to shift your time in your life to match what you believe you should get out of this class? What I'm hoping is that as you progress forward, you start to see real connections between what we're talking about in this class and your own life. And one way to do that is to think of as many ways to connect the things you do in this class to your major or to your life. Particularly in the discussion boards, you can come at it like if you're heading to be a nurse, talk about it from a medical ethics perspective. If you're thinking about, going into engineering, how might engineering be something that could be useful in displacement issues around the world? Start digging into those things, because eventually you'll do a global solutions paper where you'll have to find a problem, something that's happening around the world that's related to displacement somewhat. Like, maybe people in a certain place aren't getting the water that they need to grow crops, or even to drink. As a biologist or as an engineer or as a nurse, how might you directly approach that problem and maybe even help solve it? That's where we're headed with this, is trying to find this practical approach, an applied ethics approach to these really big world problems of human displacement, right? Over 65 million people have been forcibly displaced for one reason or another: war, famine, lack of infrastructure, all kinds of things, right? Violence. So think about that, right? You and I are student teachers and teacher students in this class. I don't like to think of myself as some authority. I think of myself as somebody, just another smart person to talk to in the class. And if you can think about that as you're another smart person to talk to in the class, then you start to take on this kind of idea of being a co-teacher in the class. So how might you be able to help out other people in the class with their learning? And I think one of those ways is to try to make the discussions as real as possible. Don't just go through the motions. Try to link them to things that you're authentically interested in, and see what other people think about them. So something I'd suggest, if you're having a little bit of trouble like kind of staying engaged in the discussion board, is to find the 3 to 4 people in the class that you think do a really good job on the discussions, that you know you're going to learn something if you read their posts. And choose 2 of those people and respond to them, and then choose a random number 3, right? That random number 3 could be anybody, and then but that way you're kind of showing, you're limiting the time you spend on the discussion board because you don't necessarily have to read every single person's post, but you're heading straight for 2 that you know are probably going to be engaging, and then you're going to go for a 3rd one that you're just going to try, figure it out. So that might be a good idea for moving forward if you're wanting to feel more engaged. I'm also going to try spicing up the discussion board a little bit more from my end in terms of, you're going to be doing some podcasting kind of things, basically just audio recordings of your posts. You could also do videos like this if you wanted to. I mean, you have your own YouTube channel through your Google Apps, through Boise State, or your Google Suite through Boise State. You could post your own videos just like this, and create more of an interaction. That's something I've thought about, but not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody has a smartphone that does a good job with videos. Not everybody has a smartphone that can easily move a video to YouTube and then post it online. So I don't want to make that necessarily a requirement, but you will be doing some audio recordings at the very least, so we'll get to hear each other's voices. Yeah, that idea of the co-teacher I think is really important, because you're going to be discovering things that I don't know about. You're going to be discovering things that your classmates don't know about. And if you're willing to share those things, then everybody is going to learn more, including me. And I think that's the point of an education, is everybody helping each other out to help each other learn. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is something that I did touch on earlier, but always think about trying to connect this class to your major. Unless you hate your major, then connect it to something else that you're more interested in. But connecting things to your major can be a really good way of finding avenues into discussions about displacement. And then eventually we'll be talking about race and religion, and ability, and a couple of other topics from the diversity book. So start thinking about how those things might affect you in the workplace, in your major, maybe even in your own family. Okay, always look for those connections. Use the concepts of the class as a tool to explore topics you want to explore and that you are interested in. Find the links, right? If you are interested in medical ethics because you want to become a nurse, then choose a topic that says something about that. Okay? Something just happened on my phone. I don't know if it's recording. It says I have a low battery, so maybe it's still recording. We will see, and I'm going to end it now.